Welcome back. I have something a little bit different for you today. It is an interview with Will Moorad, the director of sport for the World Fitness Project. I actually did this back, I believe, on September 18th, so almost 2 weeks ago. But that was the week of the WAZA event, the Wadapalooza SoCal Tier Cup event. And it just felt like it would have gotten buried under all the tier Wadapalooza content and no one would have saw it. So I held on to it. And then it appeared that Will was doing the rounds of podcasts and of stations with interviews. He was also on Peter's, on Coffee Pods and Wads. So this may be a little bit redundant, but if you're interested in seeing it, stay tuned and watch the rest of it. I will make a couple little comments about some of the things he said right off the top here, and then I'll let the interview play. When I interview someone, I really want to allow them space to talk about the question and to express their perspective on whatever my question was. So I never really look at it as a debate as much as an opportunity to hear the other side or hear that side. I don't really think there is any other sides on this. I would like to see the World Fitness Project succeed. I think it's a little bit of a complicated thing coming into a space that already has such a well-established big event like the CrossFit Games, and now creating an event that requires as much, if not more, time and dedication is a difficult thing to do. But if the space can sustain it, I'm here for it. So definitely wanted to hear what he had to say about things and give him space to speak about that. One more reminder, if you are new here, or if maybe you aren't into interview formats, or you've already seen Will Moorad interviews and you don't want to watch another one, which I understand because there has been quite a few, subscribe. Just subscribe and watch the next video. There'll be a video next week. You can skip this one if you want, but I do think it's interesting to sometimes see different formats and to hear from different people. So if you haven't heard a Will Moorad interview yet, please continue watching. Subscribe. Can you say subscribe? I swear you said it. I did ask him about the likeliness of a WFP event ever becoming a semifinal. And he told me he didn't think that was very likely, although anything could happen. But he doesn't think it was very likely because of the caliber of athlete and because of the tour format. I will give him the tour format because I agree that could be a complicated thing to create into a semifinals event, because the idea of the tour is the full test will be seen at the end of the tour, not necessarily in any specific one event. And if you're going to be a qualifying event for the CrossFit Games, ideally you'd want that to be a balanced test of fitness, not a test of fitness that has to be seen over 3 or 4 events. You want to see it right there in that one event, in that one 6 workout event that one weekend. So I do agree that can make it a little bit complicated. The caliber of athlete thing, because we've had semifinal events, qualifying events, in-person qualifying events that do attract very high caliber of athletes. And we have athletes that are all top games contenders contending for 2 semifinals positions, 2 games positions. Mayhem was a great example of this. Crazy caliber of athlete. You had athletes finishing in 3rd and not qualifying for the games who are games champions or contenders. So, or have stood on the podium for sure. So it was interesting, because I do think the caliber of athlete is not a great argument for why the WFP can't be a semifinal or in-person qualifying event. But the tour reason is definitely a good argument for why it might be difficult. He does go on to say something else about his perspective on where things can go with the relationship between CrossFit and WFP, but I will leave that for the interview and for you all to hear on your own. He also talks about coming into the CrossFit space, or the functional fitness space, as he refers to it some of the time, and injecting extra energy into the space. And I totally agree that the WFP has done that. It gives us more to cover. It gives us more to talk about. It has been great for the media people. And it has been, I think, pretty good for people at home who might just be craving seeing more of the sport. Because this time of year, other than Rogue in the past, has been pretty desolate for things going on in the space. There was no Wadapalooza SoCal in the past. There was Rogue. There was no WFP. So there's just a lot less. And now we have a lot more to talk about. I think that's great for the media space, great for growth of the sport, and something that really allows us to have a conversation all year round. Like in other sports like basketball, like the NBA, where they have summer league in their off season, it gives you something to talk about, even though their season is really long. And there's a long time to talk about NBA basketball. They still have summer league, which gives you a little bit of time in the off season to again talk about basketball. So this kind of gives us these other things to talk about when it's not peak game season. So I do agree it injects more energy into the space, and I do think long term that can be a positive. It can feel like a lot right now, and for some fans of the sport, especially older fans of the sport who have been around for a long time, it might feel like a lot. We're used to having this natural come down after the games. We're just back up. But I think if it balances right long term, it could be a good thing. So I'll let you watch the interview. Carson's eating this bone. He doesn't like that I took it away from him. So I'm going to let him go. I'll let you guys get to the interview, and I'll see you in the next one. I am here with Will Moorad. We're going to talk a little bit about the WFP. We're in the middle of the season here, or I guess a little bit farther than the middle of the season. What would you call it? It's like halfway through in points, but more than halfway through in events.
Yeah, I think it's the regular season's over. I think that's a fair way of putting it because there are double points, more workouts at the finals and things of that nature. So postseason, I guess, even though it's a short postseason and one event postseason, and I think that we're getting into it.
How are you feeling so far with the events? Do you feel like they've went the way that you were hoping for them to go? Is there anything you're already looking at for next year to make adjustments?
Yeah, I feel good about them. This was our first time doing this as a unit. We have a lot of experience within the team, but coming together and putting on two world-class competitions in pretty close proximity was a challenge. And I think that our team met that challenge head on, and we learned a lot. It wasn't perfect, but it was pretty good. And if it went perfect, you're never going to be able to improve. So we're taking lessons learned from every event and kind of applying those to the next event and just refining how we operate as a unit, from our product standpoint to our communication internally and externally. So I'm really proud of the team. I'm excited for what the future is going to hold for us moving into the finals and then into 2026. But yeah, we're all pretty happy. It's busy. It's been a busy year to do, two events and a third coming up. We probably are the only people in the history of the sport to put on three world-class level events with that type of a roster and production value ever in the history of the space. So that's kind of a cool place to be. Doesn't mean it's stress. It doesn't mean it's not stressful. It certainly is, but I'm enjoying it, to say the least.
Yeah, right now you're bringing up something else I was thinking about when I was getting ready for this interview, but I heard WFP may be approaching some other events like Torian Pro. So, not doing all the events yourself like you have so far. Is that something that's actually happening? Are you approaching people like Torian Pro or anyone else to possibly partner up for some of the events next year as opposed to hosting them all on your own?
Yeah, we've spoke to a lot of events about potential collaboration and just being able to create more value for the athletes competing at those events beyond what they traditionally are. Not only, we talked to the guys at Torian, Wadapalooza, some other big events, just about how we can maximize the time spent, the time the athletes spend competing, the money they spend competing, going to these events. So yeah, we spoke to a lot of them. We're working through what 26's schedule can look like in collaboration with a lot of those big events, because there's only so many dates on the calendar, and if we can unify them under one banner, it's valuable for us. It's valuable for those events. It's definitely most valuable for the community, and that's really what matters, making sure that the athletes and the fans all can kind of follow the season with, some continuity between all the big events where all of their, like for the fans, all their favorite athletes are competing, and for the brands, all of their athletes are competing in a certain league. So yeah, those conversations are ongoing. All right.
No big deal.
My
I
phone
wasn't sure if it was
overheated.
me or you.
No, my phone overheated.
Oh,
That's what happens. That's why you try to find an office.
yeah,
So I had to get out of the sun,
no
but
problem.
we're good now. That's a first. Uh,
So you were talking a little bit about possibly partnering with some events, some of the benefits. With WFP being in its first year, is another benefit possibly financial? I imagine it's a lot of money to put these events on, and possibly partnering with someone else may, I guess, alleviate some of that strain as well.
yeah, certainly. A lot of the events that we have spoke to obviously have good relationships with the sports commissions and with the government entities that do events within their countries or cities or states or whatever it is. So there's definitely financial benefit to partnering with those events, but more so it's to partner with them to serve the community local and not to come into a region or a city that already has a pre-existing event that's successful and then swallow them up or create competition. I think it's more so how do we bring value, a mutual value. The WFP brings incredible broadcast, it brings the best athletes in the world, it brings big endorsements, a lot of those things. And then a lot of the other events bring history. They bring a history of following from a certain level of community. Great example that would be Wadapalooza, right? They probably serve the community level athletes better than any other event in the space. So being able to maybe partner with somebody like that down the road is intriguing to us. And I think it's intriguing to them as well, as we're kind of ushering in a new era of what fitness is going to look like, through obviously within the functional fitness space, but also broadening the scope of the type of athletes that we work with and the type of sports that we integrate with. So there's a lot of growth happening, but certainly partnering with events that have a history, that have a following, is something that we're working towards. And you can see that with how we selected our event directors.
Mhm.
You know, Jason Ansley and Roger Nielsen or Gilros, two last names. They have bootstrapped their own competitions and ran them for 8 to 10 years on their own and have amassed a huge following in Scandinavia and in the Midwest with Monster Games. So that's kind of how the WFP started, was to have a genuine connection to the community, whether that was through myself as an athlete and a gym owner, or through, Jackson and Bella and Beth and Quentin, who have owned gyms and competed in the space, or Jason and Roger, who, have ran events, or Ryan, who started an activewear company in the functional fitness space. Like, everybody has deep roots in the space and values this community and what it can bring, and the growth that it can provide for whatever your vertical is within the functional fitness space, competition, gyms, apparel, whatever it is. So that's kind of what we're doing. And I know that was a little all over the place to answer that question, but I think I covered a lot.
Yeah.
um,
Have the other groups, the other entities, the other events, have they been receptive so far to at least conversations?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, everybody's really excited about what the next steps could be. There's a lot of things we need to figure out, and there's a lot of unknowns still with what's going on in the space. So those are active conversations. They're all very positive. Everybody's kind of has a similar North Star, which is important. And that's really where those conversations begin. What are your values? What do you want the future of your competition to look like? And certainly, what are the WFP's values, and what do we want our competition to look like in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years? So getting aligned on a lot of those principles is kind of where the conversations start, and then you can kind of get into the business stuff and go on from there. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Would there be a possibility of becoming a CrossFit Games semifinal event, just even because something like Torian Pro this past year was, right? So if you would, or you couldn't partner, I don't
No,
know.
I don't think that our competitions would be a semifinal event. I think with just the way the tour is and the caliber of athletes, you couldn't really make a WFP event a tour event. It's a world class tour, and we have the best in the world. So I could see maybe in some world the games becoming a part of our season and one of our main tours, because we have the exact same roster. But who knows? I mean, there is there's a lot of overlap with the athletes, like pretty
Mhm.
much all of them. So if we can make it, if you can make it less of a either or and or this or that, I think you can try to make it easier on the athletes to decide. I mean, people are like, oh, you're making the athletes decide, and we're like, nah, not really. Like, I think this year was fair enough, considering the timelines that we were given. And yeah, I think that would be awesome to have the games as one of the tours. It's certainly there would be a criteria to meet on both sides for that to work. But the games or Wadapalooza or a WFP event, they all need to meet the same criteria. It's not like one's better than the other. In order to run a league, everybody has to come to an agreement, and you need to meet somewhere, and that's kind of what creates sport. So yeah, yeah. I never say never, but nothing like that is in the works, or nothing like that is like concrete right now.
Sort of off of that, that reminded me of something. There have been some talks about possible exclusivity. Is that something that's happening at this point, or no? No.
There's no exclusivity. I said it on the Pulse podcast. There's a lot of people in the space that want clicks, and they want separation, and they want animosity, and that's a part of their deliverable for whoever's employing them, is to create that. And I said smear campaign on my last thing, and I think that that's a pretty accurate description of what's going on. And no, not at all. I've talked to all the athletes one-on-one, and in groups, and I think that that's something that's unique, right? Like, I'm friends with all of them, all the athletes, all the agents. Like, I have deep relationships with a lot of them, so they can hit me up and ask me, and they have, and I've told them the same thing. So for the public, I suppose, who isn't on the inside of that, it's certainly a lie. There's other motives going on when people are putting out that messaging, which is fine. That's their job. They need to do what they need to do, and I need to continue to do the job that I'm asked to do. And doesn't mean it's easy. Doesn't mean it's not frustrating or annoying, because it certainly is. But it doesn't change the way I approach my job. It doesn't change the goals of the WFP. It doesn't change the way that I treat the athletes, the brands, the fans that interact with the WFP, because those are the priority. It's just noise. And, people are talking about you. That's good. So they're kind of helping promote me and the
Yeah,
team,
all
which
press
is
is good
great.
press.
The team's happy with the extra press, so keep it coming. I'm overheating. I'm
Did you?
overheating here. It's crazy.
I figured you overheated again.
I turned on the AC. Is that too loud?
I can't hear it.
Okay, cool. I'm like just trying to blast the AC. It's pretty hot here, so
Maybe it'll cool
that's
you
wild.
off too.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No
Funny.
problem. So my next question was sort of based off of what you were talking about with some negative press and things like that. How do you feel like the WFP has been received so far? Or what are you hearing behind the scenes? It's a big event coming into a space that already has a big event.
Yeah, I think the majority has been very positive. The athletes love it. Agents have been very helpful. The brands are certainly supportive. The fans, for the most part, love it. I think what people get fixated on are the small number of people that are negative, and they're probably just the loudest. And that's fine. Like I said earlier, that's part of their job, and it doesn't mean that what they're saying is accurate. It doesn't mean that they themselves actually believe what they're saying. Maybe they're starting to convince themselves of it. That's to their own demise. But yeah, I think it's been received really positively. We've said from the beginning it's an additive thing. It's certainly been additive for the athletes, for the fans, and the brands. And when you're talking about building a company and supporting a community, that's who matter. So we feel like we've served all three of those really well. And honestly, I think we've kind of helped promote the functional fitness space as a whole. Even for the media, you guys are having a lot more to talk about, and that's important for growth of the space. And you could have, if you look at trends across the space over the past couple of years, it wasn't trending in the right direction. So us coming in and kind of injecting life back into the space, whether you like it or not, it was a positive, and people are talking, and that's good for everyone. And you're a fool if you don't think that that's true. So yeah, man, I think it's been good. And, people want to throw disruptive or, CrossFit versus WFP or whatever out there. And it's not about that. You know, it's about us kind of ushering in a new era of what competitive fitness could look like and branching out into things outside of functional fitness and trying to partner with different competitions and really show the world what the best, the fittest, or the fastest, or whatever it is in functional fitness are. And I think that we don't need to get into like the programming side of things. That's the fun side, but we are definitely diversifying what the athletes will be tested on next year and broadening the scope of what's traditionally been tested. Which is good. And I think it's time. I think it's time to kind of let the athletes express what they're doing in their training. I said it before, you know, James did a half Ironman and did an incredible job of it while maintaining a world-class level. You mean he's second place in the, I believe he's second. No, he might be in first place right now in WFP. So he can go out, run a 70.3, and then come out here and kick ass on the weekends against the best athletes in the WFP. That's pretty incredible. And then you see athletes doing high roxes or other hybrid races on the weekends and doing phenomenally well. I know Ricky did one in Australia, and I think got first or second. You know, that's pretty incredible. So how can we implement those types of tests into the WFP season and really claim to have the best in the world at this? So that's pretty cool. That's exciting for me as director of sport. It's exciting for our team. It's exciting for some of the brands that aren't traditionally in the space to hear that we're doing this type of stuff and seeing how they could maybe sell WFP to their niche of athletes that buy their products and vice versa. So that cross pollination is really exciting. It's cool. It should be that way. And yeah, that was a lot.
Yeah. Well, and I mentioned the similarities between the WFP and the games being big events, but there's also some big differences with the WFP and this season structure. And now we have Copenhagen coming up and it's double points. There's two races going on. We have both the Copenhagen event and we have the overall race. How are you going to keep people informed about both of these? I think people in this space aren't used to this race format where this event really has two things going on at once.
Yeah, it's similar to F1, if you will. You know, you could win the last event of F1 and not be the world champion. And I think it'll be a similar angle to that. You know, the World Fitness Finals is its own event and it has more points on the line and there's more workouts and it's more days, you know, but it is a separate competition than the end of season leaderboard. So I think what we'll probably do on broadcast is just have a live, you know, obviously this is what the standings are in Copenhagen, but this is also a live tracker of if this were to be how the weekend finishes, this is who's going to win the world championship, just so that people can track both. And then next year we have a slight modification to the point system that will even make that easier to follow, you know, by using the points that the athletes accrue across the workouts individually as opposed to just the competitions, you know, and having a fixed point system given to the winner. You know, the winner of a tour event gets 500 points. So letting the athletes accrue points on each workout value as opposed to competition value is something that we're working towards and figuring out the best way to do that, especially as we introduce the Challenger Series, which is, you know, essentially if the tour is the gold league, you know, what's the silver league point system look like and how do we integrate that in a fair way? So there's a lot of conversations going on with coaches and they're putting input into what they think is fair for that. And obviously our team's working on that as well as we move towards 2026. But yeah, the next step is the finals, and you know there's going to be the World Fitness Finals champion, and then there's going to be the WFP Tour champion also. So yeah, we'll have both of those leaderboards rolling throughout the week.
Yeah, it's gonna be something new for people to get used to, but I think there's two races, more excitement. One more thing that I feel like people have been a little bit confused on and just looking for some clarity on is sort of how the salaries and prize money work. I think I've heard some things about how the prize money, you only get it if it's more than your salary at the end. Is that how it works?
Right. So we gave the athletes guaranteed minimum contracts. So say I gave you a $20,000 guaranteed minimum contract Say you win $10,000 at the first event, $10,000 at the second event, $10,000 at the third event. That's $30,000. We owe you 10 grand on top of your guaranteed minimum. But if you win 5 grand, 5 grand, 5 grand, that's only 15,000. Then we owe you a payout of 5 grand at the end. So it guarantees a minimum payout uh, at the end of the season, and it's kind of just an earn out structure where once you pass up your minimum, you get paid on top of that. If you don't, then at least you have that minimum to sit on for the season.
I think guaranteed minimum is actually a very it's a very clear way to put it, and I think kind of helps make it more understandable about how that actually works. Is like people are getting salary is a good term too, but guaranteed minimum I think makes things a little bit more clear as to how that structure actually works. I don't want to hold you up too long. Is there anything else you really feel right now is going on in the WFP space that people might need clarity on that you want to use this time to clarify?
Yeah, I mean, next up is our World Fitness Trials. It's how we're going to fill out the teams of 4 roster for RX intermediate scaled, and then our duos for masters, and then our next gen, which is our teens division for the finals. So that's 2 workouts a week for 3 weeks, starting October 6th and finishing the 26th. And that's the next thing up for us. So the workouts are ready to rock. If you've been following qualifiers, they're very similar to the qualifiers that the individuals took on earlier this year. So if you want to get a little bit of practice in the next few weeks, maybe take a peek at those. There's a few modifications to them just because, the level of athlete's a little bit different, but it should be a lot of fun. There's links all over our Instagram. There's links posted on my page to the trials. So go check it out, sign up, and you'll get a chance to compete on the pro floor, on our community floors in Copenhagen, which is going to be awesome. And there's an event on Saturday that every division is going to take on. And I believe most of the divisions will be on the pro floor, which would be pretty cool. So we're excited about that. But yeah, that's pretty much it right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you.
No, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, have a great rest of your day.
Yeah, you too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.